What's good, hunters? Welcome back to the channel. Quick question for you though. Would you like to know the power of having God and anime on your side? Look no further. Right here, we're gonna take a little look into what the longsword is all about. I have my pros, my cons, and of course my opinions at the end. It's gonna be crazy. Now without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, it's in the weapon's name. It's called longsword. It definitely has some reach. Now, you can't be too far away like how a gunner can, of course not. But in wilds, it low-key feels like you can be at quite a far distance and still destroy the monster. It's honestly pretty good on the mobility department. You can still move pretty fast when unsheathed, and dodging really isn't an issue, especially when you have something like a counter. The counter potential for longsword is truly unmatched. It has a myriad of counters. You have moves like Foresight Slash, a special sheath that allows you to move directly into an EI counter. You now have super armor, which kind of serves as a counter in itself when you use Helm Splitter. It's crazy to think about how much this weapon can really do now. And all of these moves, they're not necessarily free because you still have to time the counter. So with enough practice, you just might become that god I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Of course, with anime on your side. Now, longsword's identity might be counter heavy, but it doesn't stop there. You also have the spirit gauge mechanics. The spirit gauge not only boosts your damage output with each level, but also rewards skilled play, of course. Spirit combos just look sick, and executing them properly can really make the difference in tougher fights. Especially now, once you get to the red bar in wilds, doing your basic triangle or Y combo throws a whole flurry of slashes to easier open up wounds on monsters. And then of course, once you get to that red bar, you can then go straight into a Helm Splitter. You can do Helm Splitter at any level, but of course, when your bar is red, you'll probably get the most bang for your buck. So once you hit that Helm Splitter, you can now press R2 or RT and throw out an even crazier flurry of attacks for your true finisher. I'm telling you, longsword is just, it might be busted. Now, longsword on its own is pretty good to use, but it's not at its strongest until you have that gauge fully maxed out, all the way colored red. The weapon, I can say, is pretty gauge dependent, and that's not always a good thing for a weapon. It limits the strength, and without it, your damage is not going to be fully optimized. So the dependency on filling that gauge, it can be pretty annoying, and it comes with the challenge of actually using the weapon itself. And I can see why most people don't like weapons that have gauges in the first place, longsword being the top one. Timing is everything with longsword. If you counter too early, you're getting punished. If you counter too late, you're gonna get punished. I guess if you do miss the Helm Splitter, you're gonna get punished. The lack of having a shield or just any way to block, it just means you're gonna be vulnerable the majority of the time if you're not timing your counters correctly. And I'll say it, bringing your longsword on a multiplayer hunt is quite the nuisance. Team play, it's just the most annoying thing to do. The longsword's wide sweeping attacks can trip or interrupt teammates if you're not too careful, and it'll do it constantly. While it shines in solo play, it can be disruptive, and I mean extremely disruptive in multiplayer. if you're not aware of your positioning. So that's where I guess positioning comes into play when you're playing with others, because nobody likes a longsword player in multiplayer. They just trip you. All in all, longsword in Monster Hunter Wilds is gonna be devastating in a good way. It's so powerful. It rewards precision, it rewards timing, it rewards you in damn near every single way you can think of. I don't know if that's truly a good thing or a bad thing. I guess for the majority, they see it as a bad thing because what's the point of using any other weapon, right? There's 14 weapons. You can use whatever weapon you want. I'm not gonna say it's high risk, high reward, because I think any weapon without a shield or a way to block is high risk, high reward, versus having a shield. I would call that low risk, and depending on the weapon, high reward. But once you master the longsword, it is extremely rewarding. And I mean, you just will look so flashy. You'll feel like you can't be touched, and you'll feel like you're always hitting the monster. It truly is one of those weapons I can say, yeah, it's easy to use, but hard to master. But for beginners, or those looking for a more forgiving weapon, you might struggle with its demands in the long term. If you stay with it, I think you can really enjoy and appreciate what the longsword truly is all about. With the pros, cons, and opinions out of the way, how do you feel about longsword? Do you see yourself using it as a primary or even a secondary in Monster Hunter Wilds? I would love to know how you feel about this weapon in the comments. Like and subscribe if you did like this video, or if you do like this kind of content. I did make a video about Greatsword. I'll leave it right here if you do want to check that out. Thanks again, hunters. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time.